Alright folks, welcome to this exciting video where you once again join me in the wild landscape of Scotland. And just check out this view folks. I thought I would stop here at the roadside to show you the true beauty of the Angus Glens. And today I'm away to head on up this direction, which is like Glen Doll direction, because there's actually a wee, what looks like, I've only seen it from the distance, but it looks like there's a wee settlement or remains of a building I've never been to on a video. So today's mission, I'm going to try and head up into this wild landscape to document the history never seen on the channel and never documented, potentially on YouTube. So it's cool to go on these adventures, but when I turned into this junction and saw this incredible view, I just thought there's no better place to do the intro, folks. And it's just incredible. It's a picture postcard scene of Scotland here. Anyway, let's get into the action, folks. Check this out folks, we've battled through a few heavy rainstorms and we've made it to the beautiful Glen Clova, and just check it out, it's just insane to see the hills like this. And it is sunny over here, proper storms are ripping through today, but I just thought I would pull the car out the roadside here and update you. The little croft I'm wanting to visit, or the remains that I can see in the distance, is over in these trees at the far side of the glen. So I need to find the little footbridge up Glen Doll. I've been over the footbridge one time before on a different adventure and I didn't even know this place existed, so it's cool to go back and retrace my steps, and hopefully it's no too overgrown at this time of year. But yeah, just check this out folks, for a scene of Scotland right here. Right folks, mission on. I've made it to my destination, and there's actually remains at the roadside of a little croft here as well. It's quite interesting to see, but the croft I'm wanting to go and visit, it's a similar deal as ancient remains of what must have been a wee settlement, but it's at the far side of the river. There is cows in this area, but they're not at this section, so I'm hoping to go across the wee bridge here to the other side of the river. I can also see remains of an old dyke. It must have been a little field or whatever related to the farm. Some of these old wall lines and dykes as well up the glen, they're actually where they would have sorted sheep out, and shepherds obviously would have been dealing with their sheep in these places. But just check out the wild backdrop for this adventure folks. Today I've just been dodging some like mad rainstorms, and this adventure I might have to even like turn around. Depends how extreme the weather gets. This is actually early evening adventure right now. Well, it's just actually 4:45 PM, so it's not too bad. Hopefully we can get in and out of here before sunset for sure. In Scotland at this time of year, the nights start to get shorter and shorter. It's still light enough at like 10 PM, but like as the months progress into the winter, it actually gets dark at like 3 PM, which is pretty crazy. So if you're exploring, you have to do a lot of it during the day, unless you're going by torchlight. But yeah, look at these massive mountains folks. We're in the middle of true Scottish wilderness for this one, and it's cool to document little crofts and things that's like in the middle of this landscape. So when you see this landscape folks and see how wild and unforgiving it is, it's amazing to think of those original farmers that built these old crofts here up in the hills. They basically took what was like savage wildernesses and boglands, probably cleared a lot of scrub and trees, and then they would have drained the land where they wanted their agriculture. And then today, it's still obviously used for agriculture, but you just see the scars and skeletons of the individual crofts. Most commonly nowadays in Scotland, the small crofts all get taken over by a bigger farm in the area, because farming itself is a lot more like big. It's a bigger operation than it was back at the olden times when these crofts were first built. The sort of remains that I'm hoping to get to on the far side, and even this croft at this side, it'll date back way before the 1700s, probably way back even like 1500s and stuff like that. That's how old it is. And just think how long ago it is since those bricks were actually laid, or I should say those stones. They were all laid there by somebody, and it's crazy to think who that was setting up their wee house and building themselves a wee farm. And it's cool, you can see what they did still to this day. Anyway, I need to make my way to this bridge at the far side. I can see this land here is thick with the thistles. Check it out, folks, Scottish thistles here covering the land. I've got the wellies on today just in case there's some mad ticks in this long grass. I'm just hoping when I get to the other side it's not too overgrown, and I can actually see some sheep as well, which I'm now going to be upsetting. I'm just going to kind of take some sort of path, hopefully like through the forest up to the track at the far side, and if I can get a route up there it should be an easy enough adventure. I can see this wee bridge here is just covered with pheasants. They're all sitting up on the railings and stuff like that. Areas like this are still popular for game keeping, and you see all sorts of game animals up here kicking about. All the pheasants and the deer, even foxes and things like that now and again. Yeah, check out this old bridge, folks. The railings is proper kaput. Yeah, this is amazing, folks. Look at this. This is a wee bridge in the wild Glen of Scotland. It's just incredible. Look at that little pheasant there, quite brave, just chilling. Anyway, I'm wanting to cross over, so he'll have to jump down to the grassy bitty below. The wood on this bridge does look pretty rotten. Look, it's actually crumbled through in sections there. So I'm just going to be safe. I'm just going to try and play it safe here, folks. I reckon there's a beam directly below me here, so if I just stay above the beam, we should be okay. Yeah, I've been over this bridge one time before when I went on a different adventure. Look at this, the Royal Engineers, Oxford University Officer Training Corps, 1987. So that's cool, folks. There's a little nugget of history. See, when I was actually coming along the main road in my car as well, I noticed somebody in like a quad or one of those little four-wheeler buggy things, and I thought, that's typical, the gamekeeper will be up here thinking like, what are you doing? But I'm really just wanting to document this history, and then I'm on my way, folks. I just love adventures, like when I'm not even sure exactly where I'm going, I just know the general direction that I need to go. And I'm literally just like reading the land, picking a route, picking the easiest path as I go. And that's often when you see the coolest things, for sure. This river level is rising because of the extreme heavy rain that we've had. We've had some mad rainstorms this past day, like. That's how I've just been kind of just heading where the sun shines, and even then, on the way up here it was proper heavy rain. There was some crazy rainbows. The water's proper brown, dark colour, and that's because of the peat. There's high peat content in these bogs, and the dark water runs down into the river. So check this out, folks. I've come to the edge of the forest line and I'm going to come through this way. I'm wanting to take a pretty much direct route. This is just some mad landscape that I end up in the middle of, folks. Check it out. It's a dark forest. I'm just going to head the general direction that I need to go. Wow, it's just crazy going from one extreme landscape to another. And just think about what a small corner of the world this is. It's crazy. From the way these trees are planted on the drills as well, it looks like they were planted in the 1940s. And judging from the size of them here, that would make sense. Wow, I'm likely to run into some roe deer or something in this place. I can hear water droplets coming from the trees. This is insane, folks. Anyway, I'll update you once I'm further through this forest, once I get to the other side. So this forest is dense and this forest is thick, but I know the river comes in at a 90-degree angle around this side, and I can see the edge of the forest line, and at this far side I can see the other edge of the forest. So I'm just staying pretty much in the middle of that to navigate, and I'm wanting to come out the other end of this section. eventually this clear section to my right should turn to thick forest. And that's basically how I'm navigating here, folks. Check this out, folks. Both the two clear sections I was following have merged, and I've been greeted with this lush green section, and I'm just about to jump across. I should be able to jump back if I have to. I'm going to try and see if there's a secondary route. We're going for it, folks. Wow, this is just a madness sometimes. The landscapes we end up in the middle of, just look at this now. Just water running off everywhere. We're in a Scottish rainforest almost environment here. It's just crazy to see. Check out, folks, there's that clearing where I parked, and the little croft that we first looked at is at the far end there. So now I need to try and head up this direction. We've kind of made it through this first section. I couldn't come directly up here because it's a pure bog, and some of that will be like waist deep or even deeper. That's why I've had to come this secondary route. And it's just been a total adventure so far, folks. Wow, this area here is like a bog almost. There's tons of creatures fleeing about on top of that water. So I'm now following this massive steep hill here in front of me, and it should be from this point quite easy to hopefully get up to that. This forest just full of deep gullies with the little tree branches and twigs, but some of it's just deep watery holes. So I'm just being super careful, and it's such a good thing that I've put the wellies on for this one, folks, because this is a true extreme world we're in the middle of. Right, folks, we've made it. We're on the back track here that I was talking about when I was at the other side. I've just literally come out through this area here. So now I think I just need to head along here about half a mile potentially, because from the other side I could just make out some stones, like some dry stone construction. It looks like walls. And just check out the size of these cliffs up here, folks. That's why I love these adventures. Coming into wild landscapes like this, exploring just crazy history, and then the things you see along the way, it's just magic. But I'm still gassed after walking up that hill for sure, through all that dense scrub, like plants and stuff like that. It's difficult to walk in, but we've been lucky so far because the rain is still off. Sometimes in these Scottish glens they've got their own weather system. It could be a nice day or a rainy day somewhere else, and the weather up here will just be completely different. But at this time of year it's proper like humid. It's 19 degrees Celsius, but it's a real humid heat for sure. So now it's coming back into exploring season. Places like this are back on the map. I love just going full send into the wild heart of Scotland, like, and finding wee houses or remains of history, sharing the British or like Scottish farming heritage or countryside history with the world. It's just cool to see. There's so much all over the place, and it's amazing to see the landscapes which the wee houses and stuff often sit in the middle of. It's just like some mad, like Lord of the Rings style CGI landscape often at times. It's just mad. Like a minute ago I was going through that forest and that was crazy, and then you come back out the other side and you're in a mega mountain wonderland, folks. That's the only way to describe it. Check it out, folks, there's a random big pebble on the road here, and I just looked over and I can actually see where it's come from. So I'm not sure. When I originally saw it I thought I'll just move it off the road in case somebody hits it, but then I'm thinking somebody might have actually laid it here for a certain reason. I'm not sure why. Maybe to stop people coming down this road or whatever, but I'm not sure. It's just a random big stone, folks, but literally I can see it's been moved from there. It's not like it's come rolling down the hill, and for that reason, that's why I'll leave it where it is. Countryside code, folks. You're meant to just leave things as you find them. Here's another interesting thing, look at this. This must be where they do the shooting. So that could show that could be something to do with the gamekeeper, like activities. They often would have somebody standing at each number with a gun, and as the birds get like driven over the hill, they'll just sit and pop, 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 shoot them. And then the gun dogs go up and collect the birds wherever they land, and bring them back down. I just have to hope on a day like today that the gamie's not about with his gun, because this is the kind of weekend day. On a Saturday, sometimes you can actually get that. Here I can actually see there's a rainstorm moving in over this mountain in front of me, folks. I need to get this adventure. I need to get to this location before that comes. Since I'm so far into this now, I'm just going to definitely make it there for sure. Not unless the farmer comes and chases me off the land. Check out, folks, I've made it as far along as this wall, but I've actually just seen a chimney of a house, so I think there's maybe a private residence in this area. If that's the case, we won't actually be able to go in here and explore. Oh, no way, folks. This is absolutely insane. We've just found the wee abandoned house, folks. I can't even believe this. No way. This is so cool. This is so much more than I was expecting, and that's why I'm so excited to see it. This is the rough stone wall that I was able to see from the main road at the far side. Just check this out. I can't even believe the history that's often just hidden in the wild lands of Scotland, and once you head out, you just find some random little things. And each little abandoned house I go to, they've got a different little story of history to tell. And sometimes just by exploring it, taking a look at the things, you get a real idea of a wee community or a family which would have lived up here at a certain time. Just check this out. This must have been their field at this side with the high wall. That shows it was likely for sheep, so the sheep couldn't easily just be like jumping out. And then at this other corner, that's maybe been an early farmhouse there, or it could have even been like a barn or a shed for the sheep. No way, here's the rain coming on, folks, but I'm not even bothered because I've been able to bring to you an incredible little abandoned house. Check that out, folks. It's such a beautiful scene. Not only the story of the wild landscape, but the story of the history hidden within it. And I just love to see it. The wee house here has been like painted white. It's had the whitewash finish on it. And that shows it's probably been upkept and maintained for longer than the surrounding croft here. And this must have been one of the little croft sheds here. We'll go and take a look initially at the house, or we'll just head through this way, folks. Let's do it. Check out the shape of this original shed door here. Think about the farmer bringing his sheep out and in here. The old drovers of the land. The original settlers. Wow, this has been a proper building compared to that dry stone dyke on the perimeter, which has been like a field or a sheep sorting area. This has actually been a proper building. And you can see the difference with the stones. It's a proper built like stone structure. Just look how it's made with the small stones and the big ones. It's impressive to see. Look, it's now home to a slug. Many slugs will be crawling about in this wet environment that we find ourselves in the middle of. And then look at this side. This must have been another entrance for the farmer to come in and out with a wheelbarrow or whatever. Look, the old gutter's actually still lying here. No way, this has been a pretty big farm croft here, folks. I'm actually going to head over to the house, even though there's no roof. I'm just wanting to get over here and document it before we get too soaked. Because look, there's been some mad like outside buildings here as well. This is so cool, folks. I just love this. Look how this little tree here is growing out of the wall. Wow, yeah, there's some cool little nuggets of history there that must have come out of the house. We'll take a look at that in a minute. Let's go in here and see what's left of the history. Just imagine the people back at this time, the horse and cart maybe pulling up. Wow, there's a wee dyke line leading round the front here. Whoa, see, houses like this, they were most likely used for gamekeepers and shooters most recently, like a bit of a bothy. So often you'll find newer like fixtures and fittings and things. Wow, I never ever knew I would find something so cool tonight. Anyway folks, I need to dry the lens and then I'll get back to you. Just check that out folks, such a wild weathered world out there. And you can see why buildings like this decay so fast. Once they're abandoned, this wild weather's just ruin and rot them. The wild winds take the roofs off and it's just insane. There's often just slight remains of the history left. And look at this here, that's one of those cool little hoovers. It's powered just by pushing it along. And I'm sure when I was little, we used to play with one of them. It must have been some old antique that used to lay about. We used to have one of those just to kind of play about with. But aye, that's so cool to see one of those for sure. That'll be becoming a rare little artefact there. It's called a Sabco. Just check that out folks, for a scene of abandoned history. And that's always what I promise you on this channel. Like, I do go on other adventures in between, try to find cool things, but now and again we'll always find beauties like this. It's like the character of decay is so special to see. And I was just taking a couple of photographs there, and look, the rain's already pretty much gone off. So this house has given another person shelter, as it would have done with generations of families. Look at this, here's one of the halves of the original front door. And you can see it's been brown on the inside, and then yellow on the outside here. That's the kind of doors that you see on quite a lot of old houses in Scotland. Check it out, the old electric meter. See, probably one winter or whatever, this all just caved in and fell in. Super dangerous, like. Look how the window and just everything's just hanging in there, folks. And then check it out here. Look how the stairs have been going up there at one time. The old stairwell. Wow, this is insane to see, folks. It's like a post-apocalyptic scene of Scotland right here, folks. Wow, it's so bad. I can't even believe this. I'm not even wanting to touch this door here. Even when I touch this wall, look, it's just hanging there, folks. So dangerous. Look, that's been a pail or whatever, maybe up the stairs to catch the water. And I love how the paint in this place is like white at the top with red at the bottom. Just imagine the farmer or whatever coming in after a hard day's work, coming through this door. It must have been a decent little house if it had the upstairs as well. Yeah, I think to see inside the rooms, I'm going to actually have to go around and either look in the window or try and see if we can see in the window properly. So there we go, folks. Check that out for an angle of abandoned history. I was just back taking a couple of photographs before I do head round. And I just was loving what I was seeing. Sometimes even though it's to that level of decay, it's cool to see how even the paint was on the walls. And it's cool just to see the little details that are still on show. Look at this massive lintel stone here above the front window. Wow, look at this. It's been so rotten, it's unbelievable. Look, there's been a wee cooker and stuff in there, most likely for the gamekeepers or whatever to be cooking up their food. Probably the beaters and stuff that they use on the shoots often come to places like this after the shoot and they have a good drink and a good feast. Or sometimes they'll stay the weekend doing a shoot. And yeah, it looks like it's had a felt roof for the last years of its life. Maybe one winter there was just too much snow like built up on top of it. I can also see an ancient wall line which leads right into here. Yeah, let's take it all in, folks. I'm just imagining how it originally was. This was most likely the original outhouse here on the back. Wow, it's just mad to see the years of decay in a place like this. And the windows have been blocked up, so we can't really see like the fireplaces and some of the interesting details at this side. Check out that, folks. So we're just getting some mad angles of this place. Taking some more photographs before I move on. That's sometimes what I do. I take a look from one angle and think, I need to definitely take a photograph. It's funny the way this roof's been braced on with these metal pieces. And yeah, when I saw the house from this angle, I had to just take a minute, because I love the character of that. It's just so wild, out in this desolate land, away from civilization. Hardly seen, hardly documented. But you have to imagine this when it was like a thriving, hustling, bustling little croft. Probably for years and years. And then one day it was just no longer needed. Maybe used a few times a year for the shooters, and then after a while the neglect, it just ends up like this. But it does look like it looks like it's had electricity, so it is interesting to think, like, I'm not sure about running water and stuff like that. There must have been a reason that it was abandoned, because it is accessible from that back track there. Yeah, it's a pretty big wall even at this side. It's a shame we can't get further in, because the way the roof's fallen in, it's just unfortunate it's like fallen and blocked the door. A lot of the time with these old roofs, the original like skylight windies in the roof used to let water in, so the floors would rot out super quick. Look at this detail that I've just noticed. Check out how the roof here has actually started sliding off the top of the wall. Wow. That is crazy, folks. And you can see the size of these trees. That's a birch tree there. It's massive. The roots will just be pushing the brickwork apart. I can see old dikes and wall lines leading right down the side of this forest. So I'm not sure if at one time this was drained and this was maybe a secondary field here. Whereas now it's just like a mad bogland. Yeah, in here there's a shed. I think this must have been when the shooters had it. I believe originally there must have been obviously a window here, but also a fireplace, because you can see how the wall's super damaged here from the heat. The stonework there's been thinned and weakened from the heat of the fire. Yeah, see what I was thinking there? There's definitely been some stone little building here, and that could have even been maybe some sort of outhouse, or maybe even where they got their fresh water. The water potentially was coming down off this hill and they would have collected it down here. Yeah, I can see different years of history. There's been originally a proper roof at this end, and this has been one of the main rooms in the house, or a main room of sorts. And then later on in its time you can see a secondary roof's been put on, and then after that it's been whitewashed with that, it looks like quite a thick, almost lime wash that's been put onto it. Yeah, look at this, folks. More history hidden at this corner of the building. Like I thought, there's been an old fireplace there, and that's why we saw the wall ruined. Even the lintel stone, look, was weakened enough that now it's cracked. And that'll be for the original heat which was generated here. See, originally there was maybe one of those hearths similar to what we've seen in recent abandoned cottages. But look at this. See the metal hooks there, the metal hoops. They actually used to have like a bar on it with like the kettle or the pan, and you would hook it on and then hinge it over the top of the fire. And I just love to see the history like that. And just think, somebody was literally sitting here cooking day after day, and just think what they might have had in their pan. Again, they were probably boiling up some tatties, maybe some lamb or sheep, some cows, bit of beef. You never know, folks. All these little farms would have made their own butter and their cheese. They would have been milking the cows, and they would have had chickens and eggs, and a lot of them would have been self-sufficient, growing their own produce and then looking after and rearing their own animals. And then one day places like this weren't strong enough to sustain themselves in modern society, and often the land around them would get sold to nearer, bigger farmers, and then sometimes people would just stay in the house. But then, even as the years went on, the house has just kind of got bought over as well, taken back over. And I can actually see there's a lot of midges around here right now. But that's because the rain here has just been on and off the whole day, and it's ideal midgie conditions. Look at the size of this window. This has been a grand window here, and the end of the house, which must have been the main kitchen. I'm not sure if there's remains behind this shed that must have been the gamey's toilet. I'm not sure if there's remains of what must have been a door or whatever leading into the house, because I can't think this room here would have been entirely separate. Not unless it was a separate dwelling. Maybe for some old cattlemen or whatever. Maybe the main family lived in that house, and then this was a separate dwelling on the end. It's cool to ponder the history and keep the history alive. And it's crazy that the mountains are so high on both sides that you can see them literally over the top of the walls. Imagine looking out your front window over this majestic scene, folks. Massive waterfall up there just dropping off a cliff. It would be cool, maybe one day we should go for a walk up to that waterfall. Because I've never been up there, and I love going places I've never been. I would love to get a view looking over Glen Doll and Glen Clover from that side. Because most times I go up the hill, it's pretty much this side. The main road kind of side. Yeah, so I'm going to head on around now and see what other details we can see. I've not opened this shed yet, have I, folks? What's going on inside here? Oh, look, they've had a chemical toilet deal in there. Let's close that up in case there's any ancient diseases in there. Yeah, this is mad. I can't even believe I've found such a cool, like, property with so much character. The land itself so wild with its own character, and then to see a little property like this in the middle of it, it's a blessing for the adventure. And I said, like, exploring season was starting again, and it's true because I'm able to go further out now into the wilds. A lot of the, like, long grassy condition and stuff, it's starting to die back. So it's amazing to see, like, this fire. Look at the wee fir tree and stuff growing out of it. And it's not only the wild character of the house here abandoning the land, but also the wild character of the land. The way these hills are just so incredibly vast. And then the house, the way it's kind of degraded and decayed over the years, it ends up with, like, its own little character. I wanted to just get, like, an angle of it from the front. Going back at a time when a thing like this was thriving and in its prime, they would have just been kicking about in horse and carts, and it would have been built way back at that time. You can imagine them adding this porch section on at a later date. Check that out, folks. Real Scotland. The thistle with a wild abandoned house in the background, and then I'm honestly in a cloud of midges. See, often in nature in Scotland, as soon as you stop, that's when all the midges come and surround you. But if you just keep moving, you can actually avoid them most of the time. But here we are, we're heading out of this incredible site. It was able to shelter us from the rain in that short little rainstorm, and I'm kind of glad it's gone off, because now I've got this mad mission to try and get out of this area. Check it out, this must be like their dump for the house here. It's like some old fridge or a freezer. This is what I love to see, folks. It's often the wee nuggets like this that tell the story of the history. Check out that big metal piece there. What's that even been? That's like an old hearth from a fire. Yeah, I've seen this at, like, other abandoned farms as well. They all had, like, a midden. Yeah, look, that's been the cooker. Check it out right there, folks. Imagine the pot of beans or stovies sitting on there, cooking away. Yeah, this is some other contraption here. Some other household contraption at this side. Just check it out, folks. Anybody got one of them in their house? I'm guessing this is some, oh look, it's one of those top loader like spin dryers or whatever it is, or is that not how the old wash machines used to be? That's what it is, folks. It's an old classic vintage washing machine right there. I've not seen one like that for years. Check it out. Wow. Crazy scenes, folks, once again on the channel. Look at this here as well. This is some other device here for the kitchen. Look, it's got a wee power coil on it there. Whatever it's been. Yeah, I don't know what that's been. Check it out. There's a control panel. Some weird mechanical like on-off switch. Must be pretty old. Anyway, let's head on out of this midden here. And we'll take a closer look up at this far side. You can tell this has had a proper roof on it with a proper door, because look, here's the remains of that history. Wow. Look at that one there. There's so many little black creatures. And as soon as I stopped there, I could literally see the midges rising up. There's the old lintel stone. Check that out, folks. Wow, I can actually see the cows are starting to come back down to that end of the field, which is the end I need to cross. It's a mad mission to get there though, folks, because even though I can just see it over there, I have to go a pretty crazy route to get back around. If the cows are there, that is. Just check out this wall. It's massive. Like the stones they've used here to construct them, look at that. Compared to my hand, these are some big stones. Like, I love the way they balance them though with the other little stones between. These walls would have always originally been of dry stone construction, I believe. It's mad just to see the different shapes. And just credit to it for the length of time it stood here. When you see a scene like that, folks, you can tell how the wall's leaning and falling. And that's why it's cool to document it before it fully falls down and before it's fully gone forever. These videos are a documentation of the history of how it was at a certain time, and then often the adventure to get to them. I just absolutely love it. And for sure, exploring season's underway now, folks. There could be a bit of action yet though. When I have to navigate around these cows, I just have to hope I can access the gate out of the field. Wow, I think these are sheep tracks that I've followed all the way into here. Up in areas like this, the sheep just roam the lands and they go where they want. The shepherd will travel around and collect them all up when he needs them. Look at this, folks. We'll say goodbye to this postcard scene and this incredible abandoned little farm croft. When I first saw the remains of the wall, I thought it'd be cool to come and see what was left, and I had no idea that it'd be so much of a little cottage, a little farmhouse just hidden here in this wilderness. And I remember one time, I think probably a couple of years ago, I came over that wee bridge and I headed along that way, and there is a wee house, but it's actually, I think it's like a private residence, because I've seen gamekeepers there quite a lot, and it's maybe even like estate owned or whatever. But I didn't even realise the whole time that there would be something so cool up this direction. Maybe one time in the future we'll have to head even further up this road and see if there's any more abandoned history. Check it out, folks, you get these mad patches of sunlight moving over the hills, and it's quite crazy to see. It just lights up that little area as it moves over. And it just looks incredible when it's on the top of some of those high hills. Wow, it's amazing just seeing the wee things like that even. So this here, folks, is the exact area that I came out of the forest. And I know because there's actually a big stone down next to this fence post. And I used that as a marker and as a guide. But it was quite a treacherous path here on the way up. And it's probably not advised that anybody would come this way, because there is probably alternative routes to get to this same location. Wow, there's so many creatures on this ground here in front of me, like grasshoppers and all sorts of things. So this is the reason that I wanted to cross the fence back to where I came. It's because the forest is easy to enter at this location. I just have to weave myself back through this dark trees to get to the other side. And I'll update you because I need to kind of get round the cow field, and I'm just hoping the cows are not going to be like blocking my exit, because that bridge is the crucial point on this walk. I need to basically get across the bridge no matter what happens. Here we go, folks. I need to cross this stream, so I'm hoping I can just kind of gently... Look, is that little baby fish on the floor of the river? And then unless it's just maybe the things off the tree that I'm seeing right there. Anyway, here we go. Yes, I've done it. Now we just need to navigate back down through this forest. This was insane. It's a similar area here as to where I crossed on the way in. Look how dark it's getting, folks. This is an evening explore. As it's getting later evening here, it's getting even darker and more eerie in this forest. And I'm having to duck down to stay below the level of the trees. But it's always the realest of adventures on this channel, folks. Sometimes it's just a madness when you're in a landscape like this. So once again, folks, like when I was on my way into this forest, you can see the daylight at that side with the green strip, but also to this side I can see the green clear strip, and that's one of the ways I navigate lands like this. So even if it was near darkness, I can navigate this forest accurately. And also that's how I know I'm on the exact route that I came into this forest on. And that's sometimes the best way on an adventure to navigate the lands. Yes, we've made it, folks, and actually our navigation was impeccable because I've come right out of the forest at the right area. And it's funny because all those pheasants are back sitting on the bridge again, and it looks like we might have a clear path to the road. It looks like the cows may still be at the far end of that field. Wow, it's amazing coming back out into the light after being in the dark forest for that. It must be almost a mile stretch that I came through, the route I came. But it was quite a clear route through the trees. Yeah, I'm just navigating this long grass, going through the shallowest bits. Still the whole time wary of ticks and other creatures. Just look at that for a scene, folks. That's almost a photograph you could have on your house wall. It's the beauty of Scotland. And then this incredible environment here with the little bridge, which looks like it's needing some new battens put on it. I think the girders are still strong enough, but a couple of new railings and the thing would be nice and strong again. It's amazing to think 1987 it stood there for, well, since I should say. So it's doing pretty well. 36 years it's been here in this wild glen. Here I can actually see like a big chunk of a tree floating down the river slowly there. The river's definitely higher today than it has been the past few weeks. You can see the green grass there is kind of under the water now. And rivers like this can rise like super quick. If there's a heavy rainstorm further up the glen, this road leads on right up to a car park, and then you can stop at the car park and there's a famous road called Jock's Road. Takes you right over the hill, and I think you can actually walk all the way to Braemar over the wild hills. There's so many cool spots like all over. Even in a wee area like this, it takes a long time to explore everything. Yeah, this river's looking like there's a lot of undercurrents on it today, for sure. Often in a river situation like this, it would be hard to swim if you fell in because of the amount of currents. The best thing you can do is swim with the current and try and get to safety on one of the embankments. Yeah, this is mad, folks. It's almost like the river's higher since I came over here the first time. Look at that railing. That's what we're dealing with. That's how I was walking over the top of the beam. So if the wood does go down, I've got more of a chance to land on the beam. And I'm not relying on the railing here whatsoever. But this bit of bridge doesn't look as bad as the end section, so I'm not sure if there's been a cow or something maybe trying to walk across. Because the cow field's literally like connected to this area. Looking up this way as well, folks, I can see the other little croft house, which must have been a wee settlement at an ancient time, which is obviously now a private house. And it's had a decent slate roof and stuff put on it, maybe at a different time. Sometimes little houses like that can be used as holiday cottages and things like that. Anyway, let's head on out of this mad environment. See, when there's no railings and you can see the river swirling below you, it's quite an eerie feeling. Well, I say no railings, there's just a single railing. It just drops off proper deep at that point. You can see the way the water's swirling and churning today, folks. See that, folks? Often when I'm waiting to switch the camera off, I just notice something else that's cool or a different angle, and then I always want to just switch the camera back on because it's so amazing to see that bright, vivid colours out here. I can actually see remains of what must have been another ancient bridge. There's a big cement chunk at the far side, so I'm not sure if that bridge was built in place of another older bridge which was like swept away. Now I'm just making my way around the edge of this final forest section, folks, and what an adventure that's been. Not only once again have we documented the wild landscape of Scotland, but this time an incredible little abandoned cottage or croft. And it's just insane to imagine the people that farmed this land originally when those crofts were first built, and then imagining the history as its life progressed. Often they were updated and upgraded with the electricity and all the latest fixtures and fittings, and then one day the house was just no more, abandoned and lost to nature and time. And like I say before, these videos just keep the history alive. Places like that are quite difficult to get to, and obviously certain times of year there's like gamekeepers and stuff operating in these lands. Sometimes you would end up in the middle of a shoot if you came at the wrong time, so you do have to be aware of that exploring these places. But I can't even believe what we found in the end. When I was thinking it was just going to be the remains of like a bit of a wall, there was actually so much of the house left to see. Anyway, folks, let's head on round. The adventure's still on because I've not safely actually made it back to my car yet, like, but surely since we've made it this far we should be safe. Check it out, folks, that sheep there is just happy grazing. It's just chilling, eating this beautiful grass out here. That's the thing with the sheep in these glens, they're quite tame and they'll do no harm. As long as you just give them their space when you're on your adventures, they're super happy just eating the grass and getting on with their day-to-day activities. And I can see the cows are doing the same thing up at this far end. Probably if I had come here at the wrong time of day or whatever, they might be grazing down in this area. It's cool to look over and see this other remains of the croft as well. I can also see my car, so I'm pretty close to it. Yeah, what an adventure, folks. I just love it. Going into the wilds of Scotland like this and then finding little nuggets of history like that hidden in the middle of them. That's what makes it all worthwhile. Look at this, even here by the roadside, there's more abandoned history and wall remains here, and you can just imagine it may have been some old mill back in like the 15 or 1600s, powered from this little stream. This was maybe also a thriving little croft. But it's amazing just to see the old last remains of the wall. This'll be what happens to like every house if humans just disappeared from planet Earth, folks. One day nature would just take back over. Sometimes stones as well from buildings were used when other buildings in the area were built at more recent times. People used to come along and take the stone. That's often how some of it is missing as well. But a lot of the time it's just because so much time has passed. The stones have literally fallen down to be this height. And look, you can still see where the front door had been, which is special to see. It's just mad the amount of little nuggets we've seen on this adventure here in Glen Doll. This must have been a wee outer shed. It's almost like travelling back in time when you imagine these buildings when they were in their original state. Beautiful strong walls standing hundreds of years ago, folks. It's just mad to think the days and nights that's passed since then, the wild Glen storms that's ripped through, the families that may have lived here and been kicked out of their homes. Maybe at that time when the English were coming through doing the Highland clearances and things, people would have been kicked out of their houses, lands would have been given to the rich nobles in the area, and it was never the same again. This is just the skeleton of that we are seeing today. Just check out that, folks, for a postcard scene of Scotland right here. And what better place to make an outro than this? It's just amazing to see these hills. I'm always just like blown away by these landscapes, and it's so cool to have an excuse to go exploring them. It's cool to put the camera on and take the viewers along on these adventures with me as I travel through mad landscapes and crazy terrains. I'm always just blown away about the wee nuggets of history. When I first saw the chimneys of that abandoned house, I thought it might be a current dwelling, and I was just like, I thought we might not even be able to do an adventure there. And then when I realised it was abandoned, that's what it's all about, folks. It's cool like finding these places. From just seeing a little wall line in the distance, we were able to find that amazing nugget of history, and that's what it's all about on this channel, folks. But anyway, I'm going to end it here because I'm just about back at my car. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with the next adventure, wherever I end up going. bye.